Inside HMP Wandsworth, violence, overcrowding, and the gangs no one talks about. The gates of HMP Wandsworth don't just close behind you. They lock you into a system that has been breaking down quietly for years. From the outside, it looks like just another Victorian-era prison sitting in South London. Red brick walls, watchtowers, iron bars blackened by time. But inside those walls is a pressure cooker of fear, tension, and survival, a place where overcrowding turns minor disputes into brutal confrontations, where alliances form in whispers, and where violence is never far away. This isn't the story of one prisoner. It's the story of a prison struggling to contain chaos. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. A warning no one heard. In September 2023, something happened at Wandsworth that sent shockwaves across the UK prison system. A serving prisoner escaped, not from a van, not during court transport, but directly from the prison itself. For many, it wasn't just an embarrassment. It was confirmation of what inmates, staff, and inspectors have been warning about for years. Because a prison this overcrowded doesn't just lose control, it bleeds it. A prison built for a different era. HMP Wandsworth was built in 1851, during an era when prisons were designed to isolate, punish, and reform, not to manage modern gang dynamics, organized violence, and a population bursting beyond capacity. Originally intended to hold far fewer inmates, Wandsworth now houses nearly double what it was designed for. Cells meant for one man often hold two, sometimes three. Mattresses spill onto floors. Personal space becomes a myth. Overcrowding doesn't just create discomfort, it creates desperation. When you pack hundreds of men into tight spaces with limited staff, limited programs, and limited hope, tension becomes a default state. Arguments start over phone access, food portions, borrowed chargers, or a look held a second too long. And inside Wandsworth, arguments don't stay verbal. The unofficial hierarchy. Forget uniforms and numbers. Inside Wandsworth, there's an unofficial hierarchy that governs daily life, and inmates learn it quickly or pay the price. New arrivals are assessed the moment they step onto the wing. Who do they know? Where are they from? What's their charge? How do they carry themselves? Certain landings develop reputations. Certain cells become untouchable. Gangs don't always announce themselves openly. Some operate on shared postcodes. Others form along ethnic or regional lines. Some are loose alliances formed purely for protection, while others have ties that extend far beyond the prison walls. And once you're marked, protected, or targeted, there's no easy way out. Staff under pressure. It's easy to paint prisons as a battle between guards and inmates, but at Wandsworth, the reality is far more complicated. Officers work long shifts, often understaffed. Overseeing wings filled beyond safe capacity. Many are responsible for dozens of prisoners alone. Tempers flare. Stress accumulates. Some officers are experienced and respected, their authority holding fragile balance on the wings. Others are new, undertrained, or exhausted, forced to make split-second decisions that could trigger violence. When staff numbers drop, visibility drops with them. And in those moments, control slips into the shadows. When violence becomes normal, fights at Wandsworth are rarely cinematic. They're sudden, brutal, overfast. A toothbrush sharpened into a blade. A pool ball hidden in a sock. A kettle boiled in silence. Violence isn't always about hatred. Sometimes it's about sending a message. Sometimes it's preemptive. Strike first, survive later. Medical emergencies are routine enough that alarms no longer shock the wings. Prisoners learn to step back, not out of fear, but habit. When violence becomes normalized, empathy erodes. Drugs behind bars. Despite razor wire searches and strict rules, drugs circulate through Wandsworth with disturbing consistency. Some arrive via drones, some through corrupt channels, some hidden in clothing, letters, or even inside bodies. Drugs create power. Those who control supply control debt, and debt is leverage. Miss a payment, and consequences follow. Protection becomes transactional. Violence becomes enforcement. It's a shadow economy operating parallel to the prison's official system. And once you owe, you belong. Scene 6. Mental health in crisis. Wandsworth isn't just overcrowded with bodies. It's overcrowded with trauma. Many inmates arrive already struggling with mental illness. Others deteriorate inside. Isolation, fear, and uncertainty amplify every weakness. Self-harm incidents occur quietly. Mental health services are stretched thin. Cries for help are sometimes mistaken for manipulation until it's too late. In a place designed for punishment, vulnerability often becomes dangerous. Inspectors sound the alarm. Multiple inspection reports over the years have painted a grim picture. Unsafe conditions, poor sanitation, high levels of violence, inadequate rehabilitation. Each report warns the same thing. Wandsworth is operating beyond its limits. But warnings pile up faster than reforms. And when systems ignore alarms long enough, failures stop being hypothetical. They become inevitable. The escape that exposed everything. When the escape happened, it wasn't just about one man slipping through security. It exposed staffing shortages. It exposed faulty procedures. It exposed a prison stretched so thin that basic safeguards failed. For some prisoners, it sparked hope. For others, retaliation tightened control. For the public, it raised one terrifying question. If someone can escape, what else is happening that we don't see? The code of silence. Inside Wandsworth, silence is currency. Snitching isn't just frowned upon, it's dangerous. Whispers travel faster than official channels, and reputations are built and destroyed in seconds. Those who speak up risk isolation. Those who stay quiet carry the weight. Every wing has stories that never reach reports. Assaults unreported. Threats handled internally. Justice quietly administered by inmates themselves. The prison may have rules, but survival has its own laws. A prison at a crossroads. HMP Wandsworth stands as a symbol. Not a failure alone, but of neglect, overcrowding, and delayed reform across the system. It holds men awaiting trial, serving sentences, and fighting battles invisible to the outside world. Some will leave changed. Some will leave broken. Some will never leave at all. And the question remains, is Wandsworth containing danger, or quietly breeding it? The first night syndrome. Every man remembers his first night in Wandsworth. The cell door shuts with metallic finality that feels heavier than the sentence itself. The sounds are unfamiliar. Keys rattling, distant shouting, metal striking metal, laughter that doesn't sound happy. For first-timers, sleep rarely comes. You lie awake listening, learning the rhythm of the wing. Some cry quietly. Some stare at the ceiling. Some rehearse violence in their heads, convincing themselves they'll strike first if tested. Because the first night is when you realize something crucial. No one is coming to save you. Cells meant for one, holding two lives. Double celling at Wandsworth isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Two strangers are forced into a space barely larger than a parking spot. Different backgrounds, different charges, different codes. One bunk above, one below. No escape. Disputes start small. Snoring, hygiene, phone time. But over days and weeks, resentment hardens. Some inmates deliberately request volatile cellmates, not out of courage, but calculation. A violent cell can secure a single cell after enough incidents. Others endure silently, counting days, knowing one wrong move could turn a cell into a crime scene. Protection is never free. Protection inside Wandsworth doesn't come with contracts. It comes with expectations. A borrowed phone today becomes loyalty tomorrow. A defended argument turns into a favor owed. Slowly, invisibly, independence disappears. Gangs rarely announce recruitment. They observe who eats alone, who gets bullied, who looks lost. By the time someone realizes they're being tested, the decision has already been made for them. Say no and become a target. Say yes and become useful. And usefulness doesn't last forever. The invisible borders. The wings have borders you can't see. Certain stairwells belong to certain groups. Some showers are claimed at specific times. Sit at the wrong table, use the wrong phone, walk the wrong route, and tension rises instantly. New prisoners learn quickly to watch where others hesitate. One wrong step can mean ambush in a blind spot, where cameras don't quite reach and officers don't arrive quickly enough. Violence at Wandsworth isn't random. It's territorial. Officers who walk a tightrope. Many officers at Wandsworth don't fear prisoners. They fear unpredictability. They enter wings knowing full well that control is temporary, negotiated, not absolute. Respect matters more than force. Body language matters more than shouting. Some officers become trusted mediators, calming tensions before they explode. Others burn out, detached, counting hours until their shift ends. And when experienced staff leave, the vacuum is felt instantly, because in a prison as volatile, experience is protection. For everyone, the economy of contraband. Inside Wandsworth, money doesn't change hands the way it does outside. The real currency is access, phone minutes, medication, food items, connections. Contraband flows quietly, often in plain sight. Debts are recorded mentally, remembered perfectly. No receipts, no forgiveness. Miss a payment, and the pressure builds. Threats first, isolation next, violence if needed. Not because of anger, but because reputation demands enforcement. The men waiting for court. Wandsworth isn't just a sentencing prison. It holds many men awaiting trial. Some haven't been convicted of anything. They share wings with hardened offenders, carrying anxiety that eats at them daily. Court dates postponed. Legal aid delayed. Uncertainty grinding away at sanity. The injustice feels sharper because there's no release date to count toward. No end in sight, just waiting. And waiting changes people. The soundtrack of survival. Listen closely, and Wandsworth has a soundtrack. Metal doors slamming. Boots echoing down landings. Shouts across wings coded in slang outsiders don't understand. At night, the prison doesn't go silent. It hums. Low arguments through walls. Quiet negotiations. Occasional screams that pull everyone awake, only for silence to return seconds later. By morning, no one asks what happened. They already know the answer. When fear turns into routine, the most dangerous shift inside Wandsworth isn't the first week. It's the moment fear becomes normal. When inmates stop flinching at alarms. When violence feels expected. When survival no longer feels temporary. That's when empathy fades and lines harden. Because once fear feels ordinary, cruelty stops feeling wrong. Failed rehabilitation. Wandsworth was meant to rehabilitate. Education, training, behavior change. But overcrowding chokes opportunity. Classes fill up instantly. Work placements are limited. Purpose is rationed. Idle men with long hours to fill don't find reform. They find schemes, grudges, and influence. The prison becomes reactive instead of corrective, containing problems instead of solving them. The men who try to change. Still, not everyone gives in. Some inmates keep their heads down. Exercise quietly. Read. Write letters home. Count days with discipline. They avoid trouble deliberately, not out of weakness, but strategy. But even staying invisible has risks, because the safest man is sometimes seen as the easiest target. The reach beyond the walls. What happens in Wandsworth doesn't stay in Wandsworth. Some gangs maintain outside connections. Messages pass through visits, phones, letters. Disputes on the street echo inside, and conflicts inside spill outward. The prison becomes an extension of the city, a nerve center rather than an endpoint. Walls don't stop influence. They concentrate it. An incident that never made headlines. There are incidents no one hears about. A beating disguised as a fall. An overdose treated just in time, or not. A threat resolved quietly because reporting would make it worse. These stories never trend. They never make statements. But they shape the reality of the prison far more than any headline. The cost of the human psyche. Living under constant threat reshapes the mind. Hypervigilance becomes instinct. Trust evaporates. Anger simmers even in silence. Some men leave Wandsworth harder. Others leave hollow. Many carry scars that don't show up on medical records. And society meets them again, changed, untreated, and expected to reintegrate. A system walking a knife edge. HMP Wandsworth isn't collapsing in flames. It's eroding quietly, through fatigue, through overcrowding, through normalizing risk. Every day it functions is both a success and a warning, because systems don't fail loudly at first. They crack, then bend, then suddenly break. The day everything feels calm. Strangely, the most dangerous days inside HMP Wandsworth are often the quiet ones. No fights reported, no alarms blaring, no visible tension. But calm inside an overcrowded prison isn't peace. It's pressure holding its breath. On these days, inmates move carefully. Conversations are shorter. Eyes skim more than usual. Even officers sense it, the feeling that something is waiting, calculating. Because violence rarely announces itself. It waits for the moment no one expects it. The escape revisited what it really meant. When the escape happened, the public saw it as failure. But inside Wandsworth, it was interpreted differently. To inmates, it proved that control wasn't absolute. To gangs, it exposed weaknesses. To officers, it confirmed fears they've been quietly carrying for years. The escape wasn't just a breach of security. It was a psychological rupture. Rules suddenly felt negotiable. Boundaries felt thinner. And hope, dangerous, reckless hope, spread through certain wings. Not hope for freedom, but hope that the system could be outplayed. When the system meets the individual. For every statistic about Wandsworth, overcrowding, violence, staffing shortages, there's a man living inside that number. A father counting missed birthdays. A teenager awaiting trial longer than expected. A repeat offender who knows his prison too well. Some believe they deserve to be there. Others insist they don't. But once inside, judgment blurs. Everyone eats the same food, sleeps behind the same doors, listens to the same keys. The prison doesn't care who you were, only who you become inside. Release day, but not really free. For those who eventually leave Wandsworth, freedom isn't immediate. The gates open, yes. The air feels different, but the habits remain. Walking with guarded awareness. Scanning rooms automatically. Reacting sharply to minor disrespect. Wandsworth doesn't always rehabilitate. Sometimes it rewires. And society often fails to recognize how much damage was done long before release papers were signed. The final question. HMP Wandsworth still stands. Prisoners still arrive daily. Officers still report for duty. Cells are still locked every night. From the outside, it functions. But the real question isn't whether Wandsworth can contain men behind walls. It's whether a system stretched beyond its limits is quietly shaping something far more dangerous than the crimes it was meant to punish. Because when overcrowding replaces control, when violence becomes routine, and when survival matters more than reform, a prison stops being a solution. It becomes a warning. After the camera stops rolling, when documentaries end, the screen fades to black. But Wandsworth doesn't. Cells are still locked at night. Wings are still overcrowded by morning. Conflicts still simmer long after public attention moves on. Reforms are announced. Reviews are promised. Inspections are scheduled. And inside the prison, men keep living the same reality, waiting to see which promises reach the wing and which disappear into paperwork. Because inside Wandsworth, change is never immediate. The cost borne by staff. Much of the conversation around prisons focuses on inmates. But the psychological toll on staff at Wandsworth is just as real. Officers carry stress home with them. They replay incidents in their heads. They learn to switch emotions on and off to survive their shifts. Some leave the service entirely. Others stay, not because it's easy, but because leaving feels like abandoning control to chaos. In a system this strained, resilience becomes a requirement, not a choice. The men who became numbers. Inside overcrowded prisons, individuality fades. Names are replaced by numbers. Stories are reduced to charges. Personal histories collapse into paperwork. But every inmate inside Wandsworth carries a full life. Relationships, regrets, ambitions that don't fit neatly into a cell. When people are treated as problems instead of individuals, prisons stop correcting behavior. They simply warehouse human complexity. How systemic failure breeds cycles. Wandsworth doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a wider system struggling with overcrowded courts, delayed trials, and limited rehabilitation pathways. Men who leave unprepared often return. New offenders replace old ones. The cycle resets quietly, not because people can't change, but because systems rarely invest in giving them the tools to do so. The myth of containment. Prisons are often described as places that keep society safe. But safety doesn't end at high walls and locked doors. When violence is normalized inside, it doesn't disappear outside. When trauma is ignored, it resurfaces later. When reform is delayed, consequences compound. Wandsworth contains bodies, not outcomes. The men who will never be heard. There are men whose stories will never reach inspectors, journalists, or documentaries. Those who kept quiet to survive. Those who didn't report violence. Those who left without closure. Their silence keeps the system functioning on the surface. But silence is not the same as stability. Why escapes shock the public? Escapes terrify the public because they challenge a belief. The belief that prisons are controlled spaces, that systems work as intended, that danger is neatly locked away. The Wandsworth escape didn't just expose gaps in security. It exposed misplaced confidence, a question of priorities. When funding is cut, overcrowding increases. When staffing falls, violence rises. When rehabilitation shrinks, recidivism grows. None of this is sudden. None of it is unpredictable. The real question is not whether prisons like Wandsworth can improve, but whether improvement is prioritized before crisis forces it. What Wandsworth represents. HMP Wandsworth is more than a single prison. It represents what happens when legacy buildings house modern problems, when punishment outpaces reform, when pressure replaces prevention. It's not unique, it's familiar, and that familiarity may be the most alarming part. The final reflection. One day, every man inside Wandsworth will leave, by release or by time. And when they do, they won't return to abstract systems or policy debates. They'll return to streets, families, workplaces, and communities. The question isn't whether Wandsworth can hold people. It's whether what happens inside prepares them, or poisons them, for what comes next. Because prisons don't just reflect society. They shape it,